The movie starts with a scene showing a fancy meal being prepared. A voiceover says there are 3 types of people: those above, those below, and those who fall. A young man named Goreng wakes up in a concrete prison cell. He meets an older man named Trimagasi, who tells him they are on level 48 in the pit. Trimagasi explains that their food will be whatever the people above them leave behind. Goreng looks through a hole in the floor and sees many other cells below and above them. When Goreng asks how the pit works, Trimagasi says they eat and explains that being on level 48 is not too bad. Goreng asks how many levels are below them, and Trimagasi says there aren't many, but soon there will be even less. Goreng calls out to the people below, but Trimagasi tells him not to, because no one will answer. Trimagasi tells Goreng that they will stay on level 48 for exactly 1 month. A platform with scraps of food then lowers through the hole in the ceiling, stopping at their level. Trimagasi starts eating hungrily. Goreng refuses to eat at first, disgusted by the thought of eating leftovers from others, but he finds a clean apple and puts it in his pocket to save for later. After the platform descends, the room starts getting hotter. Trimagasi explains that the temperature will keep rising until they boil alive unless Goreng returns the apple. The punishment for keeping any food is being burned or frozen to death. Goreng quickly throws the apple back and the temperature goes back to normal. Goreng offers to tell Trimagasi why he is in the pit if Trimagasi shares his own story. Goreng says he plans to quit smoking and brought a copy of the book Don Quixote to read. Every inmate is allowed to bring 1 personal item into the pit. Trimagasi asks if Goreng came to the pit voluntarily. Goreng says he agreed to stay in the pit for 6 months in exchange for a diploma. Trimagasi is in the pit for a year and is upset that he isn't getting a degree. The next day, Trimagasi tells his story. He bought a Samurai Max, a knife sharpener he saw on TV. Then he saw an ad for the Samurai Plus, a self-sharpening knife. Angry that he wasted money on the Samurai Max, he threw his TV out the window, accidentally killing a man below. Trimagasi feels no remorse because he says the man was an illegal immigrant and shouldn't have been there. Trimagasi says there are at least 132 levels, as he was once on level 132 where no food reaches. Goreng doesn't believe Trimagasi could survive a month without food, but Trimagasi says he still managed to eat. Goreng wants to convince the people above to share food, but Trimagasi says it's useless. Goreng tries to pass the message to those below, but Trimagasi urinates on them, shocking Goreng. Goreng then shows Trimagasi his copy of Don Quixote and asks what item Trimagasi brought. Trimagasi reveals he brought the Samurai Plus. The next day, Goreng is shocked when a body falls through the hole into their cell, but Trimagasi remains calm. Goreng shouts to the other cells, asking why no one reacts to the body, but he gets no reply. Goreng starts to suspect that Trimagasi ate his cellmate. Suddenly, the food platform arrives with a bruised and bloody woman named Miharu. Goreng is worried about her, but Trimagasi assures him that Miharu comes down every month looking for her son. Trimagasi explains that Miharu kills her cellmate each month to increase her chances of being with her son in the next cell assignment. He suggests the body that fell earlier was Miharu's previous cellmate, pushed by her. As the platform descends, Miharu is attacked by prisoners from level 49. Goreng shouts for them to stop, but they ignore him. Trimagasi tells Goreng not to interfere because they'll only keep her for a few days. Miharu defends herself, killing 2 men, and then calmly continues down on the platform. She looks at Trimagasi and Goreng expressionlessly before disappearing. After Miharu leaves, Goreng starts reading Don Quixote to Trimagasi, beginning from chapter 1. Over the next month, the 2 men become friends. One night, Trimagasi asks Goreng if he believes in God. Goreng stays silent, but Trimagasi tells him to pray because the room is filling with gas that will make them sleep. When they wake up, they'll be in a new cell. Trimagasi says it's his second to last month in the pit, and he doubts Goreng will survive much longer. He believes he deserves a degree for his time in the pit. Goreng asks Trimagasi if he believes in God. Trimagasi replies, "This month, I do." When Goreng wakes up, he finds himself tied up in bed with a gag in his mouth. Trimagasi appears and reveals they've been moved to level 171. Trimagasi explains that hunger can make people go crazy, and since Goreng is younger, his meat would be more desirable. However, Trimagasi hesitates to kill Goreng and plans to spare him for at least a week. They hear screams from above as other prisoners realize their new level. Bodies fall past them through the hole. Trimagasi removes Goreng's gag, and Goreng pleads for his life. Trimagasi says their friendship wasn't meant to last. The platform arrives in their room with empty plates, and Trimagasi throws them in frustration. He says that after 8 days, he will start cutting strips of flesh from Goreng, keeping him alive so he won't bleed to death. Goreng tells Trimagasi that while the immigrant's death was accidental, Goreng's won't be, and Trimagasi will be responsible. Trimagasi argues that the ones above will be to blame. For the next 8 days, Trimagasi keeps Goreng tied up while Goreng tries unsuccessfully to escape. On the 8th day, Trimagasi tells Goreng it's time to start eating him. Exhausted, Goreng solemnly tells Trimagasi he'll be solely responsible for his death, not the circumstances or the inmates above. Trimagasi begins to cut a slice from Goreng's leg when suddenly Miharu arrives on the platform. She knocks out Trimagasi with a wine bottle and uses his own knife to slit his throat. Then she frees Goreng, who fatally stabs Trimagasi in self-defense. Goreng passes out and wakes up to find Miharu cutting into Trimagasi's flesh to feed both of them. When Goreng asks Miharu her son's name before she continues her descent, she doesn't answer. Over the next month, Goreng survives by eating Trimagasi's body. He begins to hallucinate Trimagasi, who taunts him for the lack of respect and sympathy Goreng showed him. The hallucination claims they're both murderers, but that Trimagasi is the more civilized one. As Goreng is gassed at the end of the month, he dreams of a encounter with Miharu. The next morning, Goreng is woken up by a dachshund puppy named Rameses the San. He discovers they are now on level 33, with Rameses belonging to his new cellmate Imugiri. Imugiri says she wouldn't have entered the pit without Rameses. Goreng scoffs, saying bringing a dog was a bad choice since it will likely die. Imugiri mocks his decision to bring a book and calls him by his name, making him wonder how she knows him. She doesn't explain, but allows him to smoke if he wants. Goreng suddenly remembers Imugiri from a flashback before he entered the pit. She interviewed him about allergies and dietary restrictions. Goreng was smoking during the interview, and Imugiri firmly told him smoking wouldn't be allowed once he entered. She then asked his favorite food, and after her ominous hint that it would be added to the menu, Goreng answered escargot à la bourguignon, snails with garlic butter. In the present, Goreng asks Imugiri if she's here to help him escape, but she says she can't because, like him, she came to the pit voluntarily. Goreng mentions people dying daily in the pit, but Imugiri corrects him, calling it a vertical self-management center. When Goreng asks how many levels there are, Imugiri says there are 200. Goreng argues there isn't enough food for that many levels, but Imugiri believes rationing could make it work if everyone only took what they needed. Their food platform arrives. While Goreng eats, Imugiri prepares 2 plates and feeds Rameses. She explains she plans to alternate days eating with her dog. Goreng warns her she could inadvertently cause a child's death, but Imugiri is confused, saying no one under 16 is allowed in the pit. Goreng insists at least one child is there, but Imugiri says there are no exceptions to the rule. The platform lowers, and Imugiri tells the people below that she has plates ready for them. She encourages them to only eat what's on the plate and to pass on the same message to those further down. The men from level 34 angrily respond, saying they just came from level 88 and are very hungry. When Imugiri tells them they have a responsibility to help those less fortunate, they curse at her and eat as much as they can from the platform in defiance. Goreng tells Imugiri that if the prisoners could ration their food reasonably, the administration would know how to prevent such problems in the outside world. Imugiri asks if Goreng thinks everything the administration does is bad, revealing she's worked for them for 25 years. Goreng argues she gets special treatment, like choosing her own cellmate unlike him. Each day, Imugiri continues to try reasoning with those below her, but they ignore her requests. On the 15th day, Goreng confronts the men angrily. He threatens to defecate on their food for the rest of the month if they don't obey Imugiri. Imugiri wanted to convince them without threats, but Goreng believes it was the only way. Imugiri tries to persuade the people above, but Goreng points out they won't listen because he can't threaten them by defecating upwards. The next day, Miharu arrives on the platform, badly injured and barely conscious. They tend to her wounds as the platform descends. Miharu speaks for the first time in the film, saying, "It's cold." Goreng realizes the room's temperature is dropping to freeze them to death. Rameses, Imugiri's dog, has kept a scrap of meat. Goreng fights the dog for it, and the temperature returns to normal. Miharu stays in their cell, and in the middle of the night, Goreng wakes to a violent fight between the 2 women. He stops them, and Imugiri bursts into tears. Goreng discovers Miharu has killed Rameses. The next day, Miharu descends on the platform again. Goreng tells Imugiri about Miharu's quest to find her son. Imugiri says she can't understand Miharu's feelings because she doesn't have children of her own. Goreng watches as Miharu attacks the men in the cell below, while Imugiri recalls her interview with Miharu 10 months earlier. She reveals Miharu came to the pit alone and is an actress, an orphan with no children, and her personal item is a ukulele. Imugiri makes racist remarks about Miharu and mocks Goreng for bringing a book. Then she admits she's been sending people to the pit for 8 years, claiming she didn't know about the harsh conditions. Imugiri removes her shirt, showing scars from cancer surgery on her chest. She fought the disease for 3 years and entered the pit to change the system after learning her cancer was terminal. The next day, the platform arrives with a plate of untouched escargot à la bourguignon. Goreng is happy to see it, but divides the snails onto each ration plate instead of eating them all himself. He asks Imugiri why she isn't eating, and she explains it was supposed to be Ramesses II's day to eat. Goreng insists she should eat since it's the last day of the month, and they don't know where they'll end up tomorrow. Goreng wakes up in cell 202, contradicting Imugiri's earlier claim of only 200 cells. He's horrified to find many more cells below them, and discovers Imugiri has hanged herself. Goreng begins hallucinating, seeing Trimagasi and Imugiri telling him to consume her body. Distressed by the hallucinations, he initially refuses and sustains himself by eating pages from Don Quixote. Eventually, he gives in and uses Trimagasi's Samurai Plus to cut into Imugiri's body. The next morning, Goreng wakes up and finds Miharu sleeping in the bed next to his. She tries to attack him with the Samurai Plus, but Goreng wakes up screaming, realizing it was just a dream. He discovers he's now in cell number 6 with a new cellmate, Baharat, a religious man who's been trying to escape the pit for a while and is confident he can do it now. Baharat tells the couple above them that God told him to escape, mentioning 2 kind people helping him, promising them eternal life for their kindness. The couple agrees to help, and Baharat tosses his rope up to them. As he starts climbing, the woman above defecates on his face. Shocked, Baharat drops his rope, almost falling into the hole, but Goreng saves him. Although the food platform arrives nearly full, Baharat refuses to eat. The 2 men listen as the couple on level 5 have. That night, Goreng is visited by a vision of Trimagasi again, who congratulates him on having only 1 month left before leaving the pit. Encouraged, Goreng persuades Baharat to join him on the platform to convince other prisoners to ration their food. He promises to make weapons to protect against aggressive inmates. Goreng estimates there are around 250 levels total. Baharat asks what they'll do if they run out of food before reaching the lowest level. Goreng suggests riding the platform back up. Initially hesitant to leave a level so near the top, Baharat agrees quickly. The next day, Goreng and Baharat begin their descent despite being mocked by the couple on level 5. Goreng explains they'll start distributing food from level 51 onwards as the first 50 levels receive daily meals. A man from level 7, who previously helped Baharat climb, asks to eat since he was on level 114 last month. Goreng is unsympathetic, and the man makes racist remarks towards Baharat, trying to grab food forcefully. An enraged Baharat kills him with a blunt object. From then on, the 2 defend the food fiercely from prisoners on the upper levels. At another level, they encounter Senior Brambang, a wheelchair-bound man with a history with Baharat. Brambang advocates for civility and dialogue over violence. He warns that their attempt to break the system will be meaningless unless the administration understands their message. Brambang suggests leaving a fully intact, beautifully prepared plate of panna cotta and sending it all the way up to level 0 as a symbolic message. Goreng and Baharat guard the panna cotta passionately, ensuring it remains untouched. They start rationing food at level 51, attacking prisoners who try to take more than their share. As they near level 250, Goreng and Baharat find a dead man, likely the occupant of Miharu's former cell. The platform continues descending without stopping at subsequent levels, leading Baharat to conclude it only stops where there are living prisoners. They hear Miharu's screams and find her under attack by 2 inmates. Goreng and Baharat leap off the platform and confront the attackers violently. Despite their efforts, Miharu is fatally wounded. Goreng briefly mourns her, but Baharat urges him to move on as the platform departs. Both men, injured and shaken, continue downward with only the untouched panna cotta left on the platform. Finally, the platform halts at level 333. Baharat believes they've reached the lowest level and plans to ascend. Goreng notices a young girl hiding under a bed. They disembark, but the platform starts descending again before they can reboard. Goreng tells Baharat to throw the panna cotta back onto the platform, but Baharat refuses. As the platform recedes, they realize the room temperature remains unchanged. The girl emerges, resembling Miharu closely. Goreng realizes she's Miharu's daughter, not son. Reluctantly, They feed her the panna cotta before losing consciousness. In another dream, Trimagasi praises Goreng for bravely distributing the food from level 6 and asks if he plans to eat Bharat. Goreng then hallucinates Imugiri, suggesting Rameses too is the message, only to be awakened by Bharat, who insists the girl is the message. Goreng sees the girl peacefully sleeping on the platform, confirming she's the message, before abruptly waking up again. It was all a dream. He finds Bharat has died from his injuries. Discovering Miharu's daughter asleep in a bed, Goreng wakes her and takes her to the platform when it arrives. As they reach the lowest level, Trimagasi's apparition returns and urges Goreng to leave with him. Initially hesitant, Goreng insists on riding the platform back to level 0, but Trimagasi tells him it's unnecessary because he's not the message. Goreng realizes he's only the messenger, and Trimagasi affirms the message needs no bearer. Understanding, Goreng disembarks, and they walk away together as they watch the girl ascend. Which movie should we recap next? Drop your suggestions in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more movie recaps. Thanks for watching.